And we're live. Welcome everybody here to your favorite day of the week. I am Anthony Irwin, joined on this fine Black Friday by Pete Zayas of Laker Film Room. We are getting ready for Anthony Davis's return to crypto, his second return to crypto.com arena, but he is officially considered a go and will be on some kind of a minutes restriction according to Mark Stein. Also got word, Harrison and I talked about this the other day, that it was probably heading in this way, but DeAndre Ayton is considered good to go for tonight's game. That is great news. We are waiting on Marcus Smart's availability, so we might get that over the course of the show. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk some kind of macro level stuff over the course of the show, preview the game tonight, back half of it. And then I kind of want to have a bit of a Q&A. I'm sure that our audience here has some questions for Pete and myself. So we will go ahead and get to those whenever we get to those. But Pete, did you have a good Thanksgiving? How you holding up, bud?
I did. I'm doing very well, man. I'm holding up better than your voices right now. How are you doing?
It's funny. As some might know, I picked up this stomach bug from Miles and from Avery the night before Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving was spent
of all days
just kind of hanging out and hoping to keep down some saltine crackers and bananas. It's annoying. It's nice to feel better now. I don't like sounding like this. It's really that's like, because I look and sound much worse than I actually feel, but I'm happy to be on the other side of it. But yeah, we were joking, we were texting. I was like, yeah, the people who I was gonna hang out with, their cooking isn't very good. So it was like,
let's hope they don't listen to the
show. It's like,
no big loss, right?
I missed the company.
I can attest to this, that you are a very good cook. So I'm sure your standards are high for others.
Yeah, I mean, it's like because they do this thing where they have Jen cook the deviled eggs and mashed potatoes. It's like any blind monkey can cook those things. Like, why are you wasting Jen on that and not having her?
What's the basketball? Is this the Rui in the corner thing that you were talking about the other day?
Exactly. Like put Jen in the pick and roll.
Put her in the ball, get her in the short roll, right? Yeah.
Exactly. No, this would be like sticking Luca in the corner. Like this would be like, all right.
Damn sure.
Gabe, Vincent, go cook. We're gonna put Austin and LeBron and Luca. We're gonna space those guys out. We're gonna go 1-4 flat. Gabe, go to work, baby.
It's so funny. In the last game, Gabe took one shot like that, just one, right? And I was like, "How dare you!" I got to dial it back with him.
You know what? I've been checking out more of your playbacks and stuff, and like I greatly appreciate like the level that you get yourself to for those things. I cannot do that on the air. This is about
how irritated I get.
Like,
You mean like how irritated I get, or
no? Like your energy level. Like it is it is way up there. Like I like whether it's like it's how irritated you get, how excited you get, all of that is like up at 13, and I think it's really good. Your playbacks are excellent.
Thank you, man. Honestly, that's just me watching a game normally. Like that's just
I know.
putting a microphone in front of how I would normally watch a game, and that's part of the reason I haven't done it in the past, especially when I work for the team and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna say some shit I regret, like, because this is not me in my most like, that's me in my reptile brain for sure.
Well, I remember, you remember doing the live show that we had there at it's like Tom's Urban across the street, and we were watching the game with like the live audience before you and I went live after the game. And I remember people coming up to you and like people coming up to us, right? It's like, oh my God, thank you very much for doing this. Thanks for hosting the show. And it was really nice. And then like something happened in the game and you were like, oh, come on. And whoever it was that was like talking to you, kind of like backed away.
Scaring the listeners as
Yeah,
usual.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it was fun though. It was fun. But yeah, to those who haven't checked it out yet, I think it's playback.tv/Laker Film Room, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Thanks, man.
To find the show there and go check that out. And yeah, it's really good. But yeah, today, like I said, we're going to talk about the starters. We're going to talk about some of the numbers on the big three so far. To even it out, I want to also talk about like some of our favorite parts of the season.
Mhm.
It's not listed on the right there. I forgot to list that, but I do want to at some point talk like one thing in particular that I've noticed over the course of the season so far, since LeBron has got back, that I think separates the Lakers in a very specific way from some of the competition, even at the upper tier of the league. So we'll talk about that as well, and then yeah, we'll go ahead and dive on in. Pete, so this happens every so often in golf, where the hole's a dog leg left or right, so you're standing at the tee box and the hole either slants off to the left or slants off to the right. And you just kind of have to figure out a way to manage that. I play kind of a more natural fade, meaning my ball goes left to right if you're watching it fly. Which makes those dog leg lefts, those holes that go from right to left, tricky, right? It makes managing that a little tricky. And every so often, if I've had a couple of beers or if I had a couple of mimosas, I'll be like, oh yeah, I got this. I'll step up and I'll hit a right to left draw and I'll put the ball exactly where I need it to go. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, you can't hit that shot. Like, what are you doing? You can't. And then I'll I'll step over the ball and I'll put the swing in and it'll go right to left, the exact opposite way of where it needed to go. And I'll be like, of course, that's what's gonna happen. You can't hit that shot. And I feel like watching the starters so far has been like, we knew how this was gonna go.
Mm.
And I know we got to give him time and there's some acclimation that's gonna take place. I just don't know that a starting five looks kind of this clunky and
Mhm.
becomes good. And I think the starting group eventually needs to be good for the Lakers.
Totally
So
agree.
my concern is I don't think they can get to where they need to get.
Mhm.
Um, do you share that concern? Your dog does.
Boba's very concerned. Boba, shut
Yeah.
up. I'm gonna put you on air. You're gonna have to be on camera if you want to be on the pod. Yeah. Sorry. I am
He's
concerned.
camera
I mean,
shy
it's
too.
we've sort of seen the manifestation of a lot of what we were worried about. It's funny because we're 13-4. We're what, third best record in the league or something like that. And this is one of the reasons why I was like, how are we going to measure success with this? Because they're still going to be able to win some games. I also think that despite this looks kind of exactly the way that we expected it to. I also think it deserves a level of sample size and time. And I thought last game was the first game where LeBron looked like LeBron and all of that. So, uh, so yeah, I agree. Okay, Marshawn, yeah, we'll let the puppy shine. Yeah.
Yeah. Callie was in the background of my offside preview today, and she was just hanging back there.
Oh, so
So
it's been one of them days. All right. Yeah.
she's more used to being on the air. She used to like
Yeah.
be in the room sometimes when I'd be recording. Remember way back in the day, Pete, that house in La Habra that I had?
Huh?
There was no dedicated office or anything like that. So
No.
whatever was going on in the house was going on in the house.
Yeah, I'm in the living room, man. I'm like, I gotta play center field out here. So yeah, y'all get access to the whole house. So all right,
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys being tolerant of that. I just know that those can be some jump scares. So, but
Well, you used to have those big black labs, and that barks a little different.
yeah, Charlie Horse could put a
Yeah.
scare into you.
But yeah, I agree. Like, if I'm going to preach process, that has to maintain itself here too,
Mhm.
right? But I don't know. How do you see this playing out? Because I do think, like, I think we agree that they're probably still going to win games. Their schedule isn't very tough right now, while they acclimate with this for this first starting group with everybody healthy. And like JJ Redick isn't quite wired in the way that some or most even head coaches are, where I do think he'll notice these things. Whereas, Frank Vogel, a little bit more old school, Darvin Ham, extremely old school. All that mattered was that they were winning. And it's like, yeah, but you could be winning in a very different and more efficient way. And I do think that matters to JJ Redick. Do you catch that same drift?
I do. I think he's managing a few different things. Like one of the things is that I think there's a political component to it, meaning that Rui has played well. He's played his role, right? And Rui is he's really the only guy of the five that, with Austin playing as well as he is, I don't see any version of this where he'd go to the bench, right? And so Rui's done his job, played well. The team's good. That it's sort of they need to rack up a decent amount of not great basketball enough to then go to Rui and be like, look, this isn't working. But then also, Anthony, there is an argument to be made that, yeah, the starters are okay, but it sets up the rest of the rotation in a way where, like, you don't have to dominate those minutes. But if we're so for example, the lineup where LeBron and DA go out, they've got like 147 offensive rating. They're just destroying teams, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of different versions of lineups that happen after the starters that if you change the starters, you also might be changing that as a function of that. So there are a few things to balance. But what do you think about that sort of like political component? And I don't mean like, oh, Rui can't go to the bench, you're going to make him mad type of thing. But I do think there's a certain amount of
there's aspects of that.
They're playing well. Yeah. That do matter.
Yeah. My counterpoint would be like, what if we start with what if we make the plane out of the black box? I kind of feel like, because all right, so the guys that come in, right, they're Marcus Smart and it's Jackson, right? And they come in and those guys play with like this way higher level of intensity and energy. And I just think like if you just injected some of that into the starting group, I feel like whatever drop off you might get from the way that those teams are beating the brakes off of teams in those minutes, you would just kind of move that to earlier in the game.
I generally agree. I'm playing some devil's advocate here. For sure.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is, like I actually made this point the other night. What if, and this is kind of devil's advocate adjacent too, but what if you do bring Marcus Smart into the starting group, you move Rui to the bench, and you don't get the effect that you're kind of looking for. And now all of a sudden, now all of a sudden you got to hope that you can maybe bring Rui back, a group that wasn't really working in the first place. That's why you moved him to the bench. And you've probably just pissed him off. Maybe even, I don't think you would lose him. Like I think actually part of the reason that I'm really on board with making this tweak is because the chemistry is so high that like this is the time where you try something like this out because you've been winning. But yeah, like, there's a world where you do make those tweaks. The starters still aren't that much better, and you just pissed off Rui. What do you think about that as like the downstream lineup things? I think that's something to be concerned about. I'm actually more worried about and I've always been wired to think about the intangible thing. What do you think about how JJ Redick and his coaching staff would handle that?
Oh, I think that's a huge part of it. I think it's one of the reasons why you have to be cautious and can't be super flippant about like, oh, we're just going to try this, and because it can have those second order effects that you're not intending. And that's part of the reason why I think they'd have to rack up a decent amount of bad basketball before they go to that. And then at that point, you can go to your player and be like, look, this isn't a personal thing. Another aspect of this too is the number of shot attempts that Rui gets. Like, Rui's a really good offensive player, and the games where he's only getting 7 or 8 shots, that's not enough. He's too good of an offensive player to take 7 shots in a game. And that, the first 2 games that he was that LeBron was back, it was low shot totals like that. I think that there is a certain degree of like, this can be better for you too. But I think that they need not everything has to happen all at once. It is a long season. This will evolve in different ways. And if this starting lineup is as meh as we kind of think it will be long term, that will play itself out in a way where, I mean, ideally it's not 50, 60 games into the season. And this is the point that you were making a moment ago about like when we're starting Taurean Prince, for example, like, look, coaches are going to try stuff. Not everything's going to work. It's the sticking with it for 50 games that was the sin. You know what I mean? And that Redick has not shown a habit of doing that, right? So I both agree with everything you said, but between the winning and sort of the second order effects that you were talking about of like, hey, it doesn't guarantee this is going to be successful and you might have created other problems. I'm not in a hurry to do it quite yet.
A number that I want to call to your attention, and now this is very small sample size theater. I do think that there's going to be some normalization here going on, but it's also very, very loud in a way that most big three lineup data is not ever very this negatively loud. So far they've only played the 3 games together. Luka, LeBron, Austin. I'm sure you've seen this. Offensive rating of 113.3, defensive rating of 129.4.
Oof.
That can't, like, again, we have to see them jump from that's bad, right? That's like loud bad. You are getting blown out in the minutes that those 3 guys are on the court together. You have to make a jump from that being loud bad to loud good if the Lakers are going to reach their ceiling. And that to me is why I'm talking about the starters, right? Because those are the only minutes in the game that a lineup gets specific minutes together on the, at the start of the game, and unless there's an adjustment at the start of the third quarter. And that group is going to be out there a ton. And if it doesn't work and your 3 best players are being asked to carry a lineup that is inherently flawed, that to me is in, the kind of thing that sinks a team or doesn't allow it to ever reach its potential. So like I don't think you and I are worried about, it's only been 3 games. It's very, very small sample size here. But if you I don't think you would very rarely or very often see a 3-man group like Luka, Austin, and LeBron have this negative a rating ever. So it's kind of like, yes, it is small sample, but it's also so outlier loud that it does make me a little nervous. Where do you stand on this aspect of the conversation?
Yeah, no, I think that they've played 6 shifts together to start first and third quarters at the very least, and I think they've won one of them maybe by 2 points, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not something where there was one incredibly bad performance that is really skewing those numbers despite the small sample, right? I do want to put it in a slightly positive direction though, in that Clipper game, I saw a lot of things that I'm really excited about. In that, I made this analogy on the LFR pod today, but you remember in the original Jurassic Park where there's that scene at the beginning where the dude who's the expert on the raptors is explaining how they hunt, and he's talking about how they hunt in pairs, right? Where it's like,
Yeah,
you're distracted over here, and then you turn, and then later
and
in the movie, that's
a clever girl.
yeah, the clever girl scene, exactly. And like, I feel like LeBron gets to be that second Raptor now in a lot of ways. That in that game, I was so excited watching it because last season, with being built around LeBron and AD and it being Austin's first year at point guard, LeBron was still the guy, and like the whole concept of the team was built around him being your best perimeter shot creator. So when we traded for Luka, there was still a certain degree of the entire structure being built around that you had to figure out, like, oh crap, we have Luka. So you're kind of figuring that out on the fly type of thing. That between that and there's a great Mind the Game episode that came out this morning in which he was talking about Luka having eyeballs on him. But sort of like the locations that LeBron is attacking from, it's sort of from the wings and shoulders with those great stampede cuts, 45 cuts, all of that, right? That it is with eyeballs on Luka. And then there's Austin attacking from the corner. That there is a certain amount of, let's wait for the cake to be baked first. However, on the other end of things, that trio had bad numbers last year too, when they were all together. So there is something true about kind of the natural fit, but I am seeing more, especially in that Clipper game, in terms of like them figuring out the where on the court of being able to play together. And we're still so early in that process that like, I want to let's keep it up, but I do have concerns over that.
Yeah. I would say right now, I would say the word concerned about it. But I guess my question is, like, at what point does it become a problem? Like,
it's a good question because it's like the Lakers are still going to be able to win some games, like a lot of games, just exactly as they are. They're going to win 55 games ish, like with this team, you know, but we want to win a championship. And isn't it strange? Like, how many really, really good teams are like, our starters suck, but we're really good overall, but our starters,
right. Like,
the Lakers are always find a way to be statistically interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it. I'll give this group, 10-ish games or so. We're 3 games in, so
Okay.
give them another handful of games or so. We'll see how the numbers look at the handful of games, and maybe the next time you and I talk, right, in a couple of weeks, we'll come back to this subject. I do want to move off of that and talk about some of the things that we've legitimately liked, and I'm going to start it off this time because this to me is very unique in this in the entirety of the league. And it's the minutes at the beginning of the fourth quarter, because that's when most best players are getting a bit of a breather. In this case, the Lakers are able to roll out a lineup of Austin and LeBron. And we know, like, that was their clutch combination a season ago before the Luka trade. And I haven't looked at the numbers at the beginning of the fourth quarters and stuff like that, but they are killing fools. And then it's been really funny because those teams that are on the court, and I saw it against the Clippers where, like, they got their asses kicked at the start of the fourth quarter, and then LeBron subs out. Normally when LeBron subs out, you get a bit of a
lull.
But then it's like LeBron subs out. No, Luka
The second
comes back in,
Raptor,
and the Clippers are just like, "Oh, fuck this.
Yeah,
We
it's a
suck
nasty
anyway.
tag.
What are we doing?"
You saw them give up in real time. Absolutely.
It was crazy, right? Like,
I know, it was so good.
it was amazing. And so, but like, this to me, I think, like, we talked about, like, the the concerns that we have about the starters, but to me, this could separate, or at least, I guess, in better terms, close the gap between them and OKC and them in Denver, because OKC, Denver, their engines sit at the beginning of the fourth period. And the Lakers have a second engine that they can basically go to that can either separate themselves if it's close heading into those minutes, or can close the gap. And then you get to clutch time minutes. And I think the Lakers are a very good clutch team, right? And so, and they'll get better in the clutch over the course of the season. So to me, I've been looking for, because, like, OKC is the best defensive team maybe ever, but certainly in the league. Denver is executing in the half court better than just about everybody, and that's with all kinds of shit going against them. Houston is this super unique blend of athleticism and length and physicality, but they also have a shot maker like KD, so they've become the best offense. Oh, also they are the best offensive rebounding team ever, right? So, like, I feel like in order to get into that conversation, you have to be the best at something. And to me, this is a really unique thing for the Lakers to be the best at. Have you noticed this trend too?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, that I think Austin's leap is a big part of that. I've noticed that LeBron and LaRavia have really good chemistry. Like, and LeBron, one of the benefits I think that we've had of LeBron sitting out the start of this season, combined with things that he was saying even before the season of on Mind the Game about how, like, he wanted to work more off of the ball, and he'd been spending all summer thinking about how to do that, how to be an off-ball shooter and all of that. But it's difficult to make that leap without the main on-ball player really doing so as well. So Austin really being able to be like, no, you're the guard in this unit. And then you see LeBron's in the post a lot more to start this season, which is something I've been clamoring for a couple of years now. And it's not necessarily all the way in the low post, but you put him at the elbow extended and whatnot and bend the floor a little bit. And he's a way that's how you're attacking with him. And then Austin is more of that quickness off of the dribble that, like, that's a really, and so that duo, like you said, has been together for a few years now, and they've been good, right, in those minutes. But now it's gone to another level, in part because I think Austin's taken a leap. LeBron is, I think, slotted more appropriately to what he can do at his age, rather than being like, LeBron, we need you to beat guys off the dribble at the top of the key over and over and over and over again. Then you combine that with the role players are better. I think defensively they're a good deal better. Like, a lot of times those groups would be small because Jackson is oftentimes the 5 in that group. That, like, I think that those minutes and being able to dominate in those spaces, and then in terms of your point of being great at something of your own, I totally agree with this overall point. The Lakers incredible production in mid-range and just 2-point
Oh,
percentage
yeah,
as
yeah.
well. Like, they're the best team in the league, even better than Denver, who's really been right at the top of the league in terms of field goal percentage, which is really who's the best 2-point shooting team in the league.
Mhm.
Whoever leads that. I think those are a couple of places where they can be dominant.
Yeah, I wanna go back to the Laravia thing. I had a decent feeling having watched, before while LeBron was out, I watched Laravia play a bunch. That was a combination that I really wanted to see, Laravia and LeBron, because Jake just never stops. I love watching him
Great motor.
play because
Mhm.
he's just always floating around defensively, offensively. He's never and when I say floating, I don't mean like, because there's a pejorative term floating where you just kind of like AD would do it sometimes. He just kind of floats around the perimeter. But no, he's always just kind of like lurking and looking for a cut, trying to find an angle here, see if he can, crash and tip the ball loose to create an extra possession. And then when he's out there with LeBron, LeBron is so good. One of the things that I've really noticed about LeBron this year, I think Luka's an excellent passer. Austin is an excellent passer. But to me, what separates LeBron from those guys is his strength as a passer, where he just flips the ball with his wrist. And it just explodes out of his hand. And it doesn't take him anytime at all. Like one of the one of my favorite passes he'll make is he'll catch the ball in that pinch post, and he'll just be watching over his shoulder, and then boom, and he just flips the
Pew!
ball with his right
Mhm.
hand, and it's Jake oftentimes making that cut down to the basket, and his that combination, and yeah, like we already know about the chemistry that LeBron has with Austin. And I think it's really good that you're noting Jackson's activity level as well, and how he helps that group. That group, you're going up against a bench unit, and that's a starting caliber engine that the Lakers are working with right there. So I'm really excited about what that looks like now, and I think that gap is only going to widen over the course of the season. What's been some of your favorite stuff from the season so far?
Just how many things that we talked about over the course of the offseason that we were like, gosh, we hope this works out
Yeah,
this
right.
way, right? Like, it's like, I hope
Yeah.
DeAndre Ayton's been great, right? Marcus Smart's been exactly as advertised. I know he's questionable for tonight, but he's been mostly healthy throughout the season. Jake, we just talked about at $6 million is a solid two-way wing, which that he might as well be Bigfoot, like if
Yeah.
getting production for under 10 million at that type of spot. Jackson putting on weight has been something that he's getting more contested rebounds and trap. That was always what the fatal flaw, and we'll see as they play. The story's still being written, but he's not getting moved around physically as easily as in the past. Austin making the leap that he has, right? And so there are several of like if you look at it, it can be hard for us to be optimistic and be like, hey, things are actually going pretty well right now in ways where, but if you think about all of the things that we objectively talked about prior to the season, they haven't hit on every single one of them, but there have been a whole bunch of things that we thought were, if not 50-50, certainly questionable on some level of, is this going to work out this way, that almost all of them have. And even the last couple of games with Kleba, I was hoping that one of the back 6 or 7 guys on the roster could pop like and have a better season than expected. And Kleba was one of those guys on the list, although the one that I was least kind of. But I
Yeah,
should
I
admit,
wasn't banking on it. Yeah.
he's a vet that actually knows how to play. The other ones are mostly kids, right? That would have to make some sort of leap on that front. But him showing a level of utility and know-how and all of that, I don't think we're there, right? I think that we need to make strides both with the talent that they have and make a move at the deadline to be able to get there. But just the sheer volume of, gosh, I hope this works out this way, things that actually have.
I also want to shout out the team's chemistry
Mhm.
because there's a whole bunch of nonsense and a whole bunch of stuff. Like this season could have gone in any
Oh, yeah.
number of directions. And like one of the things that I was really harping on, and the reason that I was so concerned about the way that the preseason and training camp was going with guys not being available and not necessarily taking those preseason games very seriously.
Mhm.
My thing was like, you have to hit the ground running those first 15 games because it's a light schedule. And winning cures all. And for a team that has so many expiring contracts,
Mhm.
that had, like you just talked about, so many variables in play that could have gone any couple of directions. For the Lakers to open up the season the way that they have and hit that ground running, and you see those variables going in that way, and for the guys to really kind of notice it has been really fun to watch. Like, the way that they troll each other online, that stuff, like you and I text back and forth about like LeBron's online presence, and how if I'm going to hypoanalyze the or hyper analyze the the subtweets and all that stuff, I also have to recognize the positive aspects of it too. And if I'm going to analyze who's interacting with what online when they aren't doing it, like they've done all of these things, and there's like legitimate. Actually, I thought a really important moment was Jackson Hayes pushing Chris Dunn the other
Totally
game.
agree. Yes,
Like
I really appreciated that. Hope Luca did too.
he did, and he said, like, I told him in the moment, I got your fine. I'll pay your fine, for doing that. And the chemistry really effing matters. Like it just absolutely does. Basketball, like you can see a baseball team sometimes not really like each other, and they'll be okay because it's basically like a series of one-on-one things that you just kind of amalgamate at the end of it, and you fart it out, and there's a baseball score, but with basketball, it's jazz. Your pianist can't be on a completely different bass than your bassist. And I'm watching this team, and it has this chemistry, it has this buy-in. LeBron has noticed going into playing with the Lakers, the level of sacrifice that other guys are having. And I think it allowed him to kind of lean into that identity of sacrifice as well. What have you seen from a chemistry standpoint?
Oh, it's been beautiful. I think one of the best things to happen to start the season, a blessing in disguise, was the team being able to establish an identity without LeBron to start out, and for him
Yeah.
to end up joining that and fitting into that, because he's so versatile that him being able to sit back and just be like, okay, how can I add to this? But them being able to build that chemistry, and it comes with reps. It comes with, that's why we were banging that drum, right? Of like doing it over and over again, we've gotten those over the first 15 plus games so far. But yeah, no, it's a huge thing. And it could totally go in a different direction, Anthony, where with all of those expiring contracts, it can be like, I'm not getting the minutes I want. I'm not getting the shots that I want. And
Trade
I'm worried
rumors are
about
coming.
rumors, and I don't want to act like we're past all of that, like,
No.
oh, it's all sunshine and lollipops, right? Like it's that's always going to be lurking there. But like they've got a good group of guys just in terms of people, right? Like, and I think I've loved the Luca and Austin chemistry, the the big brother little brother type of thing. Actually, they're about the same age, right? But where they just screw with each other all the time,
Luca
like you're
looks like
saying.
the big brother. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the bigger brother for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's been a beautiful thing to watch, and just the cheering on the bench. Maxey is a guy, you always see him up on his feet cheering for his teammates. Jackson is like this. It's just a good environment, man. Like even for the younger players that might not be, producing as much this year, but for the future, like I love the idea that this is Thero's rookie year, and this is the bench and environment that he's in, right? Like
Yeah.
all of that, just and credits to JJ and the staff for helping cultivate that.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to preview the Lakers Mavs game here in a second. A reminder, hit us with whatever questions that you have. We're going to have, looks like, about 20 or so minutes to answer some of you guys' question after a quick preview of tonight's game. And I don't normally do this with you, Pete, but this Mavericks matchup is so unique. And then it's, AD coming back to crypto and all of that stuff. I just really want to start, like, I've seen, like, I don't know if you have felt the same way. I felt like oddly defensive of Anthony Davis so far this year, where there was a big long report about how the Lakers felt about him on his way out, and there are Lake Mavs fans who were angry at him for saying that, like, he felt bad how it went with Nico and stuff like that. And AD doesn't always help himself very much because he's not particularly self-aware in some of the quotes that he gives at times. But like I've always thought that he's caught way too much shit, and now he's on the trade block, and they're like, yeah, maybe they can get a couple expirings, a decent young player, and a pick for him. And I'm like,
Oof.
Man, like this is I feel really bad for him. So there was a comment actually earlier in the show. I think it was right up at the top. So dang it, I can't see it. But yeah, somebody was asking like, is it weird that I'm kind of rooting for AD even against the
Yeah, it's the
Lakers?
first
And I
one.
was like,
Snow
I
Town Lakers. Yeah.
I don't think it's that weird. I really like this guy. He helped us win a championship. He's always, he according to him, he felt like he was playing out of position for years on end without getting the support from the organization that he was kind of hoping for. And then he gets traded into a situation that he can't win in. Like there was no winning being Luka's immediate replacement. So yeah, I don't know. Have you felt the same kind of defensive sentiment?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's something that one of my very first thoughts after, the mind melting trade was like, oh, this is terrible for Anthony Davis. Like, this is
Yeah.
terrible for AD.
For
Just
him specifically too.
yeah. Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And he was already like an underappreciated player historically for what he's done. And he is also, from working with the team, universally beloved from a I like you as a person standpoint. You're nice to all of the photographers, the team attendants, the everybody who's around likes Anthony Davis. You know what I mean? He's a genuinely good person. So to see him squarely in the crosshairs yet again in a way is discouraging. The one bit of criticism of him that I do think is valid is how he takes care of his body, right?
Yep.
And that was part of that report. And that, honestly, when I read that report, I was like, a lot of this rings true in terms of what people internally thought of him with respect to just, and remember when he showed up at training camp for Dallas this year, there are some photos of him looking a little chunky, right? And his response was like, well, what do you mean? I always come in this way. And I heard from
Like
Laker people like,
Anthony
yeah,
Davis,
that's
the problem.
kind of our argument, right? And
Yeah.
it's as you get older, two parts of that. The best version of Anthony Davis I ever saw actually didn't look like that. It was the year that we won the title, right? And if you go back and look at those highlights, he's much thinner right now.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to fill out as you get older and all of that. But I do think there's a certain amount of like, no, this is part of why the reason why the Lakers did want to get out of there was 4 more years on that. That's part of what's so astounding about this trade is the Lakers probably had I don't know if AD is going to be healthy through his mid-30s problem waiting for them in the very, very near future.
Yeah, I'd heard that they weren't exactly over the moon about the kind of extension they were going to have to sign him to.
Yes. And so to resolve that problem by trading him for Luka Doncic, like
it sounds so stupid.
Because Dallas is finding themselves in that when you're talking about a couple of expirings and a decent young player, maybe a pick or two type of thing, like that's such a pittance relative to Luka. But the reason for that is like he's under contract for 4 more years. And if he continues having health issues that when it isn't available, like they're really in a bad spot that the Lakers were going to be in a lot of ways. And so, but yeah, man, I love AD. He's a champion. He's one of the things that bothers me about how he's received by Mavs fans, even though I totally understand, is that he would give his heart and soul for that team. You know what I mean? And there are a lot of times that he does go out there and he plays hurt. He plays banged up, right? He did that many times for the Lakers that I just forever feel that he's unappreciated and he's in a circumstance now that he will never be appreciated in. And so just for everybody's sake, I hope he gets moved.
Yeah, I'm really hoping he gets traded sooner rather than later, just so that he can reset. Dallas can fully reset now that Nico's gone, and the guy that they traded Luka for would then be gone. Just everybody just gets to kind of move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember when a few years back when it was maybe not the year after they won the championship, but the one after that one. I think everybody, realistically speaking, especially with the Lakers, they were fairly realistic. We just won a championship like last week sometime, So coming in and then immediately playing a season again, the bumps and bruises that everybody got along the way. I kind of felt like the Lakers were kind of realistic about that. But then the following year when Anthony Davis came in again, a little portly, I'll never forget the first time my grandma was like, Fred, she like poked my stomach and I was like, what the hell, Grandma? But like he came in that following season and the debate on Lakers Twitter was like, well, he's just bulking up to play center more. And it was like, that might
Just
be
like
the
you and me,
excuse he's
you and I are
using.
also we bulked up like well, not you, right? You had the
I
stomach
was
flu, but yeah, that's
bulking
what
up
we've
for
been doing.
fatherhood. Yeah. Um, so, but like, I remember while that was going on, and I was talking to some of the people that I talked to, and they're like, yeah, well, it was this kind of lurking thing in the background, and now that it's kind of out there, I'm like, fully and reported and stuff. It's kind of nice that we all get to move on, but I do find myself, I will be rooting not for him obviously in this game specifically, because the Lakers need to continue to win as often as they can. But I'll certainly be rooting for him in games where he isn't playing the Lakers and wherever he goes next, unless it's to Boston. Please, dear God, don't let him go to
Yes,
Boston.
no. You know what I find interesting is that that's the same complaint that Dallas had about Luka, and the Lakers like dissatisfaction with AD's conditioning and all of that. You never heard about that until he got moved, right?
Yeah,
Despite getting way more coverage than Dallas, you heard about it all the time with Dallas that they don't like the shape that he's in and all of that.
yeah.
That is one of the strengths I think of this Lakers front office is sometimes it's okay to shut up and just like not tell everybody what's on your mind and what you're bothered by. And so credit to
Especially
them for not
traditional
letting that
media,
become a thing.
right?
Yeah.
Like, it's one
Mhm,
thing if it's somebody like me on my show and I'm like, yeah, I'm hearing some of this stuff,
mhm.
but and look, like, we could talk about journalism in today's age, but like, um, the fact that that didn't get out to traditional outlets where it would become a week long talking point. It also, I think, helps that AD carries his weight very differently than Luca does. Luca's
Sure.
very blocky, and he just kind of he carries all of his weight in his core, whereas I always thought that AD carried his weight in his shoulders weirdly.
Hmm.
Like, people would be kind of excited, like, dang, look at AD, looks swole. I'm like, yeah, the swollen is different than swole. But yeah, what are you looking for in tonight's game?
Well, I think this is the best defense the Lakers will have played, obviously with AD back, since the return of LeBron. And so this burgeoning, again, I rewatched the Clipper game last night, and I was doing all of my logging and sorting and all of that. And seriously, Anthony, it was one of my favorite film watches I've had in the last couple of years because it was like, oh crap, this is gonna work. This is really gonna work, right? Just the different vectors of attack with Luke up top, LeBron slashing from the wings, and Austin in the corners with a level of
I love
interchangeability
that.
amongst
I
all of them.
love that term, vectors of attack. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Perfectly
because
put. Yeah.
that was one thing that really toward the end of that game, Austin was killing them out of the corner. And it wasn't just as a spot up shooter. And that's something that most of the time when you've got a player in the corner, they don't have a ton of ball handling.
Yeah.
But if you think about
It's rude.
you've just flipped the court around from straight on to the side, and you have a high level point guard attacking you from there. And you could flip it and have Austin on the wing and LeBron doing the same thing. But the point is that you usually do not have somebody with that skill set attacking you out of the corner that can also cut and read off of the ball, with which both LeBron and Austin are wonderful at. And so against Dallas, that's going to be one of the biggest challenges, right? Is that this is a better defensive team that for all of their offensive issues, it's a better defensive team. And so there's that. Really, what do you think of Flag? What do you think of Cooper Flag?
He's another guy who's just been put in this impossible spot. I think he's really talented. I thought the whole point guard thing was a big mistake. I just
Yeah.
didn't. Aaron and I always debate this. That he thinks that him getting those reps as a primary ball handler will help him long term. But it's like,
I agree with that.
I mean, like, yeah. If I want like Miles to play football, I could technically have him go wrestle a bear. I just don't like, if he gets his ass kicked by the bear and eaten by the bear, then like it doesn't help him with football. So I just thought they were asking too much of him in that spot. And he gave, I thought, one of the most telling quotes of the year, where it was after another loss, and he's like, "This is the most losing I've done ever."
That's a very
And I
new
was like,
experience for guys.
"Fuck."
Yeah.
Like that, so I'm really excited. And I think it's also part of why I'm really excited about him as a player is because he did know I usually win when I go places,
He cares
and
about it. It's not about
so
numbers.
I like that he cares like that. I don't think he's going to be I don't see him as like an offensive engine in the way that people kind of thought and envisioned coming into the league. I think he'll be kind of a secondary slasher wing that takes down, like you're talking about, like from the side angle type of domination there. But yeah, I think he's fun. There was like the KG comps, and he's not as big as KG, so I don't really see that, and he's not as long. I have him as like I think he'll top out as a second tier NBA player. Not like a super duper star, not Wemby, not Jokic,
I agree
not
with that.
Luka, but like, in the next tier down, which is, all you could ask for from most number one picks. How about you?
Yeah. No, I think that's accurate. I don't think he's going to be like a freakish type of player like those guys, but I think he's going to be a very good two-way guy. The fact that he's getting a lot of strength wins at the age of 18, where this is where I agree with Aaron's point in that, like, if you watch it, and it's not always pretty, but he uses his size and physicality off of the dribble in ways where if you're doing that at 18, what's that going to look like at 23? When you filled out a little bit more and all of that. And you combine that with some defensive talent and some versatility. I do think he projects to be like a second star where he is able to create his own shot. He is good at it. But if he is your, like, this is the dude we give the ball to, that like I think that's over asking a little bit. But but most guys that have the level of offensive talent that he has aren't that good on defense. And I think that he's got some more defensive ability than most of them. So yeah, I think he's going to be very good. With respect to tonight's game, I think they're going to have a hard time guarding us on the perimeter because they're so big. There's going to be a Cooper Flagg or a PJ Washington trying to guard an Austin Reeves or a Luka type of thing, where it's, like they're good on defense, but at guarding forwards rather than a really, on ball guard type of things. And then, yeah, just how we're able to manage their size and all of that. They're going to play with a certain level of force, but they've been a bad offensive team. So really, for me, it's a lot about like our offense versus their defense.
Rico says a better version of Aaron Gordon. I like the comp. With Aaron Gordon. I thought he was miscast in Orlando when they were trying to make him the engine of their offense. And people started getting down on Aaron Gordon. Then he gets to Denver that has one of the best offensive engines that we've ever seen. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
that's what it looks like when a player is properly slotted.
Yes.
And actually, ironically, I kind of think it's kind of funny that it works out this way, but there's some Anthony Davis to it too, right? Where AD is much better defensively than most offensively skilled players are. And so you're looking at me like that could be the best player on this and that team. And it's like, yeah, but he was a wrecker of worlds when he was the second best player.
That's right. That's exactly right.
All right. So let's get to some of these questions here before we get you out of here, Pete. So I'm going to combine a few questions. So Mo Love OG, would it make sense to start Rui with this much offensive firepower in the big three? I meant to say, does it make sense to start Rui with this much firepower and Luka starting hot? Smart, obviously, maybe Vando. And then Haywood also, am I the only one who thinks Vando deserves a shot with the starters? He is the perfect player to put in a role that requires no shot attempts and they just won't try it. I'm about as low on Vando as I've ever been on a Lakers, so I'm probably not the person to ask this about Vando specifically, but I think this kind of gets to what we were talking about earlier, in that is Rui like too much duplication of one specific skill set with that starting group?
I think so to a degree, but I don't think that Vando is the answer. I think Vando swings to an opposite extreme. So I've actually talked to people about the starters and sort of the rationale behind it. And the idea is, you notice how Luka starts out games very aggressive with his own shot. In that Clipper game, he took 15 shots in the first quarter, which is crazy. And so
awesome.
the argument,
he was killing them.
The argument that Laker people make for a more offensively geared fifth starter is that it creates the environment for Luka to do that. No, Vando does not need touches, right, in that respect, but the way that teams guard Vando, and this applies to Smart to a degree as well, by the way, it's not to the same level of severity as Vando, because he's a good deal better than Vando on offense, but if Vando is on the court, they're largely going to ignore him in a number of ways that all of a sudden clutters things that prevents that sort of dynamic Luka in the first quarter. And so a lot of our game plan is like Luka goes crazy right at the beginning. The other team goes, well, if we don't double this dude, he's going to go for 60 tonight. And then we are playing sort of a different game in the 4-on-3, and then it becomes a lot easier for everybody else. And if Vando were on the court during that time, it would be much more difficult for Luka to have those type of starts. And so I like Vando's not going to go from DNPs to starting. I do think that there is a space between Rui and Vando that's like maybe Laravia type of thing, but even then, I'm still of the belief that you need at least one guy in your starting lineup that is really good at guarding the best perimeter player on the other team. And I understand the arguments against every single potential fifth starter for the Lakers, including the guys that I would pick as the fifth starter as the Lakers, right? So, but that's
Who
sort
would
of
you
the
pick?
argument. I'm still smart. I'm still
Me
smart.
too.
I think it's the best balance between the two. But I also understand that if you put like teams guard Smart differently than they guard Rui. We've seen several plays where it's we run a
Smart is
ball
shooting
screen.
24% from 3-point range, and a lot of them are butt ass naked open threes.
Exactly. You
So
give Rui that shot, like he's going to cash that in the vast majority of the time. And so,
yeah.
yeah, so that's the argument. I understand the arguments behind it. I don't think there's a perfect solution though.
Jake has kind of crept up my ladder as far
Mm-hmm.
as like I'd like to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like Jake is just a lot more active than Rui is when he doesn't have the ball. And I like that activity. Then the idea of that activity when all three of your best passers are on the court, the idea of like, oh, Jake's just gonna sneak in behind the defense and try to find a way there.
Mm.
But yeah, one thing that Pete, you and I were kind of talking about in texting was how if this is going to be the starting group, one of the things that I would like to see from these guys between now and a change is eventually made, if one is involving Rui more in the pick and roll. And like you made the point earlier that Rui is just way too talented an offensive player for his shots. And you looked at it from a statistical standpoint. He's not shooting enough. But I actually also think that like he's very much a rhythmic shooter where he's the kind of guy who likes to pump fake, likes to take a dribble or two, get to his mid range and shoot that automatic mid range jumper that he's developed, and credit to him for doing so. And I'm not saying he needs to become your primary screen setter, but I would like to see him set a few more screens on ball so that when teams blitz Luka, and that's what all these teams do against Luka, when they blitz Luka, you get Rui the ball there at the free throw line area, and he has a dribble or two to either get into a rhythm and take that free throw line jumper, or if a team is dumb enough to play off of Austin, LeBron, or Ayton, they can do that. And I think he's skilled enough to make that pass. But that's something I would like to see in between now and if and when a change is made. What do you think of the notion of involving him as a screener?
Yeah, I think it should be part of the menu for sure. I think it's going to depend on how teams are guarding them. He is, when they're blitzing him, he's going to be our best jump shooter out of that. My concern is that those 4-on-3s have a level of ball handling and decision making components that basically I want him to be a screen setter for Lucas specifically if they're facing a drop coverage and Rui can pick and pop for an open three.
Yeah.
If he's getting the ball in the short roll on a 4-and-3, he's got the scoring talent for sure to hit the shot. I don't like his processing as much in terms of or his ball handling. Like he's going to get stripped on some plays, like make the wrong decision out of that. I want Rui being more of a finisher than as a decision maker. So that's my one hesitance with that. And then the other aspect is I think there's a certain element of whack-a-mole in that I agree that would get more utility out of him, but I think it would reduce Ayton's utility a little bit.
Yeah.
In that, yeah, you could put Ayton elsewhere. You could put him in the dunker spot or in other parts, but he's not quite as like he's a real professional five at that off of ball screens and things like that. That I think that if you do it for the benefit of Rui, you're doing it a little bit to the detriment of Da.
Yep. Yeah, I while you were talking about it, I was thinking like that probably makes more sense to do in Luka Hayes combinations because Hayes is a lot more natural in the dunker spot than Ayton would be. Let's see. We got another question. The intellect Q4E asking, do you think Rob Pelinka is under pressure to get rid of Vando and to get us a 3-and-D wing? I'm guessing the pressure would come from Rob being the one who gave Vando the extension. Maybe I don't.
Yeah, I
But
wouldn't
I
describe
don't
it
know
as
how much
pressure.
pressure he's under now. He's a made man. Like I've been trying to tell you guys, he is
Thank
never
you. Oh,
going anywhere.
I'm glad you're hammering this home as well. This is something that I think there's one of the biggest disconnects between the online space and reality. And whatever your opinion is of it, you could be like, "This is idiocy." I think
Yeah, I don't have to say I agree.
I'm not saying that's right, but especially after getting Luka and then having a tremendous summer, right? Like he just signed a contract extension. He is way more in lockstep with Genie and Mark Walter than people realize. I think people took the Bus Brothers being let go as a certain like your next motherfucker like thing with Blinken.
No,
It's not like that at all. And
no.
so I don't think he's under pressure necessarily to get rid of Vando. I think he would very much like to move Vando. But the thing about Vando is that he is a negative asset around, and so I don't expect the Lakers to be able to move
And we're
him.
talking like hugely negative asset.
Right.
Like it would require a first round pick just to move him negative
Think
asset.
so? You think it would require first to get off of
Yeah.
him? Yeah,
He's
it
got
might.
2 more years on his
Mhm.
extension after this one.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's something that I think they would like to do that, and I think they would like to acquire a 3 and D
Totally.
wing. I don't think that those two things are necessarily the same thing, meaning that I would not expect them to be able to move Vando for a better player because he has a negative, he has a negative trade value in the first place.
What I will say, I'm gonna slightly amend my statement because there are a couple of teams that are fans of Vandos more than others.
Good
One
point.
is
Just gotta
Minnesota.
find one.
Um, Anthony Edwards loves Jared Vanderbilt, loved him as a teammate, loves him as a player, and that is the super duper star that they are trying to keep in Minnesota forever. So if the Lakers were to get on the phone and be like, "Hey, what do
We'll
you
trade
think
you for an
about?"
expiring contract, and we'll
Yeah,
give you Vando. I don't know what their contract situation is, but yeah, you just got to find one team like that. I think that's
right.
way likelier than a Vando is directly traded for this really good 3 and D wing that takes his spot type thing.
Yep, and then Miami is another team to keep an eye on with Jared Vanderbilt. He's a Pat Riley player, just gets after it constantly, crazy motor, all that stuff. Really, really tough player. He's the kind of guy that they would like. So you just need. I mean, a market can just be 1 or 2 teams, and that if the Lakers are able to take advantage. But I do think it's like I really want to hammer this home. Think of it this way, and you can correct me, Pete, if at any point I say something that is wrong. Rob Pelinka is Genie's closest link back to Kobe, and Genie is very, very, very like like close friends and family driven, right? So, um, if that's your starting point, and she's rooting for Rob because of that starting point, all Rob has done since is win a championship. He acquired Anthony Davis, right? I'm not going to give him much credit for LeBron James because, like, LeBron has said he was going to the Lakers regardless. But Rob was the person who resuscitated the negotiations with New Orleans to bring in Anthony Davis. He pulls that off. That offseason when they had to scramble and figure out a way to recover from not getting Kawhi Leonard, he figures that out to the tune of a championship. In the year that we lost Kobe, that stuff matters. And then Magic leaves, and the way that I'm going out of order now, but Magic left the way that Magic left, right? In very embarrassing public fashion, all that stuff. Rob is the guy who kind of circles the wagons, and they believe in Rob. They double down on him, and all that stuff. And then since then, he was able to turn, like we just talked about a second ago, Anthony Davis, somebody who they weren't necessarily thrilled about giving a super duper max extension to. They turned him and Max Christie, who they kind of liked, and 1 first round pick into Luka bleeping Doncic. Like that guy is never going anywhere unless he decides to retire. They brought in Farhan Zaidi and they brought in Andrew Friedman. That's the kind of thing that you do if you want to coach because they didn't do that with Nick Coletti, right? With the Dodgers. Mark Walter brings in those people, has Friedman and Zaidi go in and talk to Rob. That's the kind of thing that you do if you want to coach a guy into being the kind of executive that you want to eventually work longer term with. And that's how I took that. I thought the Bus Brothers thing was a move that had been coming for a long time.
Yeah, I likewise, right? And I so maybe the Kobe loyalty was a starting point.
Yeah.
I think that how Rob has moved internally, like he is he is very good at getting the at getting the person that he works for to like him.
Mhm.
And he understands like exactly what Jeannie wanted. And like one of the things, and was a big point of contention between Jeannie and her younger brothers, Jesse and Joey, is that level of keep things in house, don't talk to people, shut up. Like, and I over and over again with both, because both Jeannie and Linda, and I know people are rolling their eyes and who cares what Linda thinks, right?
Yeah.
But Rob has engendered a certain degree
He
of like,
does. It matters.
it matters whether you like it or not. It matters a certain level of like you can rely on me to fulfill your wishes. Meaning, like, you want things to be a certain way.
Yeah.
I will build this around the way that you want it to be. Right. And he was great at that with Kobe as well in an agent type of role. I think his GM history has been a bit more checkered than the way that you described. I have plenty
totally.
of
No, but
yeah.
So the way I guess I should have framed it as I am the picture that I was painting was from a perspective of somebody in Jeannie who wants him to succeed and wants to keep
Sure.
him around long term.
Yeah, and I think that he's only increased trust in that. Even the Westbrook trade, weirdly enough, like one of the things that I know that the internal perspective is like that's what the money's for with respect to like getting blamed for certain things and certain moves and kind of being the meat shield for everybody else. That's
Yeah.
part of Rob's job. But the people internally, in terms of how the Westbrook deal went down, I don't think there's a lot of like, damn you, Rob, for doing this. That's not really what the engine was in the first place for the move. That yeah, I just the way that he's been loyal for an owner that loyalty is everything is super important. That yeah, I just think and then that followed by you get a franchise superstar and you have a very good offseason after that. I think he's much more entrenched than people realize.
Yep. I don't see him going anywhere while Jeannie has any say.
Mm.
That's a basically I think it's like, in the ways that it was reported, she could have stepped in and saved Jesse and Joey or whatever.
She wasn't going to do that.
She
No.
was not going to do that, but she would, I think, do that with Rob. She would, I think, do that with Linda, Kurt, that circle of folks. Pete, this has been a blast.
Mhm.
It always is. You're going to be on playback tonight.
Yeah, going to be on playback tonight. Got some, if you want a LFR t-shirt or hoodie or
Yes.
yeah, we got a new store over at Cotton Bureau. So check that out over there. And thanks for having me, man. Be back in a couple weeks.
Yeah, Jack, right? Jack Perkins is helping you guys with the art on that stuff. So looks excellent, man. It looks really
Great.
cool.
Pure hoop. Yep.
All right, everybody. That is going to do it for this week. I am going to try to rest up my voice so I don't sound like this next time you guys hear from me. So until Sunday, have a great rest of your weekend. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you guys then. Oh, sorry. Quick little thing. I wrote something for Substack that was pretty personal to the people who have reached out so far. Thank you very much for that. If you guys want to check it out, I think it's like substack.anthonyirwin.com or something like that. Check out that piece. This was my first sober Thanksgiving in a long ass time.
No kidding.
And it was because I was really sick, but but it did kind of open my eyes up to like, this is a possibility here moving forward. So if you are interested in sobriety and addiction and being a father through that stuff, check that out. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys on Sunday. Have a good one, everybody. Be safe. We'll talk to you in a few days.